Alrighty, I think we can get started. Hi, good morning, everyone, and welcome to the FlexWork Hybrid Work webinar. My name is Ranja Giabasios. I am the Outreach Manager for Georgia Commute Options. Some of you already know who we are, but I'll be going over who we are for those of you who are not familiar. So let's go ahead and go to the next slide and get started. So we have a webinar full of good stuff for you all today. We're going to start with some welcome and introductions, introducing our guest speakers. We also have one of our FlexWork consultant team is going to go over some trends and national and regional data that we have in this space, in the hybrid workspace. Followed by, we're going to go overview of our services here, our Georgia Commute Options. What can we do to help employers in this space? And we have one of our partners here joining us as we talk through. We work with Clayton County Water Authority in the past few months, and we're going to go have an interview with someone from there. Next, we're going to talk about, we have a lot of things going on with Georgia Commute Options. We have some events, some challenges that's going on, and we would love for you and your employees to be aware of them. And we'll have some time to do some brief Q&A at the end. Next slide, please. So Georgia Commute Options is a program funded by the Georgia Department of Transportation and is managed by the Atlanta Regional Commission. We work with employers, commuters, and schools to reduce number of single occupant vehicles on the road. And our services are free, and our aim is to motivate people to choose clean commutes. And that include van pooling, carpooling, biking, transit, teleworking. And we do this in order to help reduce traffic and congestion in the region and to lower emissions. And our industry is called transportation demand management. So we are on the demand side. And we cover our 20 county in Metro Atlanta. And we have worksite advisors who work in those 20 county, and we also partner with transportation management associations. And those include Perimeter Connects, Midtown Alliance, Atlantic Station Access Program. So you might have heard about this webinar through our partners. Next slide, please. And so here we have our speakers. We have our consultant team. We have Elham Shirazi and Robin Mack. Together, they have decades of experience in this space. So you have quite a treat with us to lean in as they are subject matter experts. And
Ranja, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry to interrupt. We're getting some messages in the chat that people can't see the slides.
Okay.
Could I just I'm seeing that some people are now saying they're able to see it. Could you just drop in the chat whether you're able to see or not see, and we can troubleshoot this? I apologize for stopping us. But...
Technical difficulties.
Yes. So because we have sort of a host participant issue here, I am going to try very quickly, and thank you all for your patience. So I have just been able to toggle on Robin as a co-host, which should enable her slides, her screen sharing.
Yes, now I see them. So I think that's
if you could just yes, they can see now. Wonderful. All right. Sorry for the interruption. Thanks everyone for your patience. Ranja, go ahead.
And thank you, Leslie, for tackling that technology issue. And so, I think I'm nearly done. Our guest speaker, our special guest today is Maria Perry from Clayton County Water Authority. She's been working closely with our consultant team, our FlexWork consultant team, on their FlexWork program over there. So with no further ado, I'll pass it on to Elham Shirazi. Next slide, please, Robin.
Good morning, and thank you so much, Ranja, for that introduction about our team and who we are. I am, as Ranja mentioned, Elham Shirazi. I have been a telework consultant and subject matter expert for decades and decades. I'll let you guess how many, but I did start when we first started experimenting with telework in the country. And I want you to know that actually most people did get started when we had the oil crises of the 70s. And this was, because of the lack of petrol and how long it would take to get gas. And so a lot of people started this concept. And don't forget, we did not have computing technologies there at that point. So anyhow, just to give you a picture, because there's a lot of question around, is everybody going back to the office? Is this a, return to the office period? So we want to share with you some good data points that actually do show that this is not necessarily a trend across the board. However, there are some big companies that have announced a, return to work, and that has been a bit complicated. So on this slide, which is done by Flex Index, and they have a very vast database. It's, close to 9,000 people, and they survey people every quarter to update these numbers. As you can see, with smaller companies, meaning less than 500, about 70% of them are fully flexible. And then there's a small minority that have a structured hybrid, meaning that the employer picks the days that they want the employees to be in the office, or the employer says, we want everybody here for, 2 days, or 2 days a week, or 3 days a week, and then employees can pick the days. And 15% of that group are fully in the office. However, as we go higher in size, you will see that actually the percentage of employers within the different sizes that offer structured hybrid increases. And, the larger the company, the more the propensity for the employer to pretty much say it's 2 or 3 days, or actually dictate the number of days. So, and this, by the way, this chart has not changed much, except for after, during the pandemic, obviously, everybody went home. And, now it's less and less. But majority of firms do have some form of a flexible telework or hybrid program. So let's go to the next one, Robin. So I guess the biggest question that always comes up with hybrid programs and teleworking is what is the impact on productivity? Are people productive? And I did want to share with you, there's been so much research that has been conducted on every aspect of working remotely, from hybrid to, fully remote. And a lot of data has been collected by very reputable sources, such as Stanford University, Harvard, Pew Research, the census. And this data is based on the research done by some students who are working for Nicholas Bloom, who teaches at Stanford, but is Harvard educated. And as you can see, the average increase in productivity is about 12%. I think that's a really good number to shoot for. And obviously there are lower points, there are higher points, but that is the average number. And it all depends on how well the program has been implemented. So let's go to the next one. So what's important, to also document is what is the impact of these kinds of programs on recruitment and retention. And as you can see, for nearly half of the workers who currently work from home, at least sometimes say that they're unlikely to stay at their job if they could no longer do so. And in fact, every time some of the big firms announce their RTO, they start losing staff. And we do want to look at that. It's a double-edged sword because in some cases the reason to ask for everyone to come back is actually because the company wants to downsize. So this is a tool they're using to have more employees leave. And of course, in some cases, genuinely that they want more order. They want more people in the office. But as you can see, the numbers are, much higher for women who'd say they would not stay at their jobs if they couldn't telework than it is for men. But, the average is around 46%. So, that's a pretty high number of people who say that they're unlikely to stay with their employer if they do not have the ability to telework. Let's go to the next one. So Castle is actually part of CBRE, and it's a conglomerate of many property owners and property managers. And what the trend has been showing in terms of office occupancy, I know this is a very busy slide, but as you can see, it has data on the 10 cities that they have been, oh, thank you. Yes, if you want a copy, you'll have to let us know in your comments and we'll send you a copy. So what we see in terms of office occupancy is, of course, we have changed from being 100%, of people working at home, or I mean, not everybody even could when everybody, they wanted everyone to do it. But the average for the 10 cities has been around 50%. And that data goes up, by the day of telework, because most people are actually in the office generally on Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays, and Mondays and Fridays are not that populated. And the other interesting factor to mention is that Texas firms, Houston and Dallas and Austin in particular, have the highest number of people who've come back to the office. And as you can see at the bottom of all this, we have LA, Philadelphia, and San Francisco. San Francisco has really been low, compared to the others. And unfortunately, they do not collect information on Atlanta, but I would, venture to say Atlanta's probably in the middle, which means that they are, in Atlanta, what you're seeing is probably something like a 50% on average for 5 days, and maybe around 60% for the Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. So let's move on to the next slide, please. Another piece of data that is very interesting is that the propensity to have flexibility does increase by the time a firm was founded. So if you look at, firms that were founded, pre-1980, up to the year 2000 are generally around 60% at the highest. And then for firms that have been founded later, that propensity goes higher. And as you can imagine, of course, this does probably correlate with the age of the owners and the age of the workers. And obviously, old schoolers are usually the last to jump on board, although having said that, it's not necessarily true across the board. So let's go to the next one. This slide is actually based on, there's a difference in occupancy based on what kind of building. And what's very interesting is that building classes A+ or A++, which typically are newer buildings, they're LEED certified, and have a lot of amenities. They have modern design qualities. They have really good construction, newer materials, and yeah, as I mentioned, high quality amenities. As you can see, they are much more in use, and people are more likely to drop into the office than they are for offices that have not been refurbished. So keep that in mind, because people really don't have the same expectations of the type of office they want to go back to. The newer offices have a lot of shared spaces for meeting and discussions. Let's go to the next one, please. So now, looking at the census, it seems that if we take a look, and as you know, the census is only repeated every 10 years, but there are on an annual basis some journey to work data that it is collected. And the authors for this are, again, Nicholas Bloom and some of his students. And as you can see, we're leveling off around 30%. And that's, since the year 22, it's around 30%. And if you want to know what is this compared to, in terms of what was this pre-pandemic, we were probably around 10%, and that was typically 1 day a week. So let's go to the next one. We recently conducted a survey with SHRM members, and although the response rate was it was about 135 valid responses. These companies are based in Atlanta. And as you can see, the biggest group are private, and then, followed by nonprofit, and then, small percentage of government and other. And when we look at, the propensity to actually have a hybrid program, as you can see, the rates are not that different. But when you look at the nonprofits, they're obviously higher percentage that are offering hybrid programs at 88 or 89%. And again, keep in mind, the smaller the firm, the more likely they are to have a program. And that is probably due to this, to the much shorter decision-making ladder. The bigger the firm, obviously, it takes longer to get a program together, and also to have a program that is working. So let's go to the next slide. This is going to be also of the SHRM participants. And as we can see on this slide, again, based on the local perspective, the reasons for which people are doing it a lot of times are work-life. And that is definitely the #1 answer for all different types of industries, private, nonprofit, and government, and then employee savings and productivity. So, but #1 is work-life. And then if we want to look at, how many of these firms have thought about communications, productivity metrics, and have training, management buying. As you can see, unfortunately, not a lot of firms have had training, and this is an area in which we can help you with, because we can come in and implement as members of the Georgia Commute Options, a program for you that does incorporate training, but top of mind is always communications, and they need to be seamless. And this is the area where some firms are still having obstacles. But as you can see, really the areas in which everybody is concerned with really do end up being these 5 categories. And government, interestingly enough, has the highest productivity metrics. And this question of productivity never goes away. And however, when it comes down to when I first started my practice, it was managing by deliverables. Now we call it results-oriented, work. So it's always come down to being able to monitor or document what productivity is based on the quality, the quantity, of the work that's being produced. So let's, I think this I just wanted to leave you with a few thoughts in terms of lessons learned. And these are really based on, my being in this field for, well, I'll fess up, close to 40 years. And, telework is not something that happened overnight. It really did start, it started in the, 70s. And it actually got high, the percentage of use, just grew over time. So the pandemic was not the first time that we started teleworking, but it's a departure in that we had to do it full time for a lot of people. And now, we're ending up with 2 to 3 days a week, which is a definite improvement from the 1 day a week type of scenarios that we saw. The adoption of innovations does take time. If you look at any kind of innovation, there's always the early adopters, and different groups come on board at different times. However, telework is not a one-size-fits-all solution. As I think many of you have noticed, the programs that you developed during the pandemic probably do not suit your workforce and your culture anymore. And by the same token, you don't want to be copying someone else's program. Every program has to be tailored to what the organization wants to do. And of course, it's about results. Of course, it's about trust. And of course, it's about training. Because, we're dealing with a lot of people who may have learned how to telework now and, how to keep that day just to do their work. But at the same time, managers have to, be trained in this arena too, because we're not managing presence anymore, but we're really honing in on what's getting done, how is it getting done, and does this work? And obviously, at this day and age, what was amazing about I think the pandemic was that we really stress tested our technologies, and look at what happened. Most firms who did have some kind of a, remote access, the programs didn't fall apart because of technology. So we are at a very unique point in terms of technology, and it just keeps growing. So at this point, I'm gonna pause and give it to my great colleague, Robin. And Robin, take it away.
Thank you so much, Elham. And I am Robin Mack. I'm the other FlexWork consultant. And I just want to really reiterate some information about the Georgia Commute Options FlexWork program. It is managed by the Atlanta Regional Commission, and it's funded by the Georgia Department of Transportation. The goal of the program is really to support regional employers by providing tailored strategies and training, as Elham mentioned. Elham and I have worked really with hundreds of employers and have many years of hybrid work program development expertise. And the best part of these services that are provided are that they are absolutely no cost to regional employers. So we are anxious and looking forward to working with some of you on your programs. And we meet you where you are. So in terms of if you are in the beginning scenario, perhaps you don't have a formal policy, you don't have agreement documents, including productive habits like do's and don'ts, things like that. We can help you with that. We can help facilitate leadership discussions with HR, with IT, with legal and management to help you understand the needs and concerns and help work through overcoming any management objections. We can also help with program design and defining eligibility criteria, who should be working from home, how often, and setting those expectations in terms of availability, communication, and performance. And then in terms of technology and tools review, we can help you with collaboration tools, cybersecurity needs, those types of things that may need to be reviewed. In terms of your communication planning, assisting with developing messaging for rollout, and then piloting your program. Perhaps you want to start with a pilot so that everyone is clear on the expectations that this isn't a permanent change. We can help design and support launch of a pilot program. And then perhaps you're in the expanding phase, and you just need policy refinement. You may need to update or expand your hybrid work policies to cover consistency across departments, perhaps expectations for on-site days, equipment provisioning, things like that. Evaluating your program, reviewing the current practices and identifying gaps within your program. And then, of course, manager and staff training, which is so incredibly important. Managing performance remotely, communication and team cohesion, equipment and equity in hybrid environments, things like that. And then in terms of tool optimization, we can look at recommending upgrades or better use of existing tools. And then scalability planning, help HR and IT scale the support model as more employees participate in your program. And then metrics and key performance indicators. We can help establish ways for you to track success, engagement, productivity, retention, all of those things that are important to your organization. And if you're in the tuning up phase, we can help with program evaluation, surveying your staff, focus groups to gather really important information and feedback from managers and staff. We can help review data, performance outcomes, and things like that, determining how we look at productivity. Policy or practice adjustments, fine-tuning those expectations around availability, communication norms, those types of things, and addressing specific issues or team dynamics that your organization may be dealing with. And then, of course, there's advanced training and refreshers, leadership development for managing hybrid teams, team building focus in a hybrid model, those types of things. We can also help with change fatigue and culture reinforcement, reigniting enthusiasm, addressing things like quiet quitting or disengagement trends, and then troubleshooting, resolving any kind of technical adoption challenges or customizing solutions for specific departments or for specific roles. And then there's episodic planning. In cases like the 2026 World Cup Games, where you may need a business continuity planning for how you all are going to work during those times, short policy and agreement situations, technology and tools, productive habits and deterrents like do's and don'ts. All of these things we can work with you on during those specific episodic times. All right. So I am delighted to have Maria Perry with us from Clayton County Water Authority to answer a few questions and to talk through their hybrid work program. So Maria, could you just give us a little bit of history about when you all started the program and just tell us a little bit about that?
Thank you so much, Robin. Thank you, Elham, Ranja. Appreciate the opportunity to talk about our experience. But actually, long before even COVID came along, we did have a telework policy in place, but only a handful of employees really used it. It was kind of that policy that was back there, and if you needed it, or if you wanted to partake in it, you could. And then the pandemic hit. And
Mhm.
like many organizations, we had to quickly switch gears overnight, get a team in place to start addressing remote work in the middle of that crisis. And at one point, we went from a few employees taking advantage of the policy to about 80% of our company of people who were eligible to work doing so. So we continued that schedule for at least the next 4 to 5 years. And then once everything calmed down and we returned into the non-pandemic state, we realized that rolling the program out in that crisis state had left a few cracks and, mostly around eligibility, technical standards, and even leaders holding their employees accountable. So senior leadership did make the decision to pause the remote work for a while so that we could tighten things up. And so during that reset, we teamed up with Georgia Commute Options to rebuild the program in a way that fit our current state of workflows. Because our leadership is really deeply committed to that work-life balance and recognizing that there were key factors that they felt were essential, and that is happier employees, less stress, and even staying in that competitive edge when it came to attracting talent. So our philosophy was really simple, and that was happy people or happy employees make great business. So.
Great, great, great. So let me ask you, I'm going to go back a little bit about when you guys were pulling the program together and when you were getting leadership and upper management buy-in on adopting really a hybrid model. What would you say worked? Like, what did they value in terms of pulling that hybrid work program together as far as your leadership and upper management?
Yeah, when we approached our CEO and the rest of our executive team about keeping that hybrid model, we
Mhm.
led with two things that they cared about a lot. And that was first, the safety of our employees to continue that process. And then, of course, uninterrupted operations. So the pandemic had already shown that telework could work.
Mhm.
And protect our people and keep business running. So that foundation was pretty solid. But what really tipped the scales was the data that we gathered afterwards. We ran employee surveys, focus groups, pulled productivity metrics from other companies, and asked team leaders to share what they had and hadn't worked, what had and hadn't worked in their teams and in their departments during the first rollout. So the numbers, firsthand, I would say, and then stories made it real clear that employees viewed flexibility as essential, and even work-life balance, and that performance hadn't slipped.
Right.
As long as people followed the policy.
Mhm.
Leadership's biggest worry was sticking to the policy. So so what happened is we emphasize accountability measures, that we would put those in place and keep those service levels high. So, one other piece that I will say that mattered to our leadership is our culture around here is very family oriented.
Mhm.
And so I know in 2023, our theme was reevaluate, reconnect, and refocus. So to honor that, we paused the program, or the program was paused so that we could reconnect and refocus and get back together and building those relationships, while in the background our leadership team was enhancing the program.
That's wonderful. First of all, I do want to commend Clayton County Water Authority because, many organizations may go down this road, and then when things just don't seem to be working very well, they just aren't sure really what to do in terms of, what do I need to do? And I want to commend you all really for kind of taking a step back, returning back to the office and trying to figure out what do we need to do in order to make this work, and to do it as best as we can. So could you just recap what were some of the main reasons that you decided to bring in the FlexWork consulting team at that point? What were some of the main reasons?
Yeah, well, first of all, we are so grateful for your support and expertise. I mean, your team brought some amazing things that we never even thought were available. So the first that was really important was fresh eyes and the true hard data, because we have plenty of opinions, but very little benchmarking. So Georgia Commute came in with that specialized analytics and real world comparisons that we didn't have. And it showed us where our program stood and where we could go. So that was key. And then also you all were our neutral voice because you guys aren't tied to our organization or employees. We found that when the focus groups were held, employees could be open up, and be honest and candid with their feedback. So that data that we collected was nothing that we could do, with our own team members. We also like the fact that you all had the hybrid know-how. So we know that you rolled out programs like this. You've worked with other organizations. So the playbook that you had in place saved us from reinventing the wheel and redoing things, which would have extended the reevaluation of our program longer than it had to be if we had to do it ourselves. And then you all provided guidance from start to finish. I mean, everything that you mentioned on the previous slide was pretty much what we experienced. From policy tweaks, you looked at our policy and made recommendations where it could have been a little bit more effective to those change management steps. You walked us through every detail. You provided the type of training that we needed. I mean, I'm one of the talent development partners here, but our plates were full, trying to roll out our existing programs. So you all came in and really did that for us, and we appreciate it.
Oh. Well, as Maria mentioned, we did come in and conducted focus group sessions with their managers and with their staff. And I want to say it was really a great experience for us because their managers and their staff were really open and honest with feedback and gave us some really great information that we could take and that we could pull together and provide them with a list of recommendations going forward. But I want to ask Maria, after reviewing those focus group results that you received that list of recommendations to improve, or the focus group sessions, was there anything in the focus group sessions that surprised you that in unexpected insights that you may have gained from those?
Yeah, I pulled out three. One was that we were surprised that, this type of flexibility was a real deal breaker for some of our employees. They expressed that they would probably start job hunting if, telework didn't come back. So they had this nice to have, they went from like nice to have program to, well, I'm either going to stay or go if it doesn't come back. So that was a surprise that it really meant that much to some employees because we have a high tenure here. 15 years and up is the norm. So that was a little surprise. And then also one of the surprises was that we had some leaders that did not feel comfortable in holding their employees accountable. They felt stuck in, what do I do if somebody's not quite following the policy? So they mentioned that they lacked some of the tools and some of the guidance to address some of those policy slips without, it being uneasy for them. So accountability was kind of hit or miss. And then finally, we found that some employees were equating remote work as a day off. So we uncovered pockets where telework days turned into errands and personal projects. And so that's when we said, okay, we need clearer guardrails and we need to really enforce our policy. So yeah, those were some of the three areas.
That's great. That's great. So when we provided the list of the recommendations after our assessment with the focus groups, could you walk us through maybe one or two of those key changes that you all implemented based on those recommendations?
Yeah, so as I said, regarding the policy, it was always in place, but many of our employees weren't participating in telework, so I don't think they really went back to the policy to see those guidelines. So we reviewed key guidelines in our policy and we explained in plain language so that these teams can clearly follow them without confusion. So we made sure we did that. Also, when we relaunched our program, we relaunched with a cap of just 1 day now. So we're going to start with 1 day a week, and we spend it like a proving ground. Like if our metrics look good and people are doing better with following policy, leaders are holding people accountable, then later maybe we can expand beyond just 1 day a week. The other thing that we did is we narrowed down the pool of eligible employees. During the crisis, of course, there wasn't really a clear eligibility communication. So we have 400 employees, and those who could remote work, were free to do so, but we tightened that up. So we narrowed it down to approximately 130 roles that would fit or be eligible for remote work. And so what that did is it keeps now our service levels strong, and it cuts down on that concern of why me, not them, type mentality when we focused on roles.
Right.
And then we also enhanced more support. So managers and employees got a refresh training that you also wonderfully provided. And we stressed in that training accountability, how to provide feedback, how to resolve conflict resolution, and then plus we gave them, some recommended technical tools to help them keep up on schedules.
That's great. I think you touched on two key points that I think everyone needs to understand. One is fine-tuning those eligibility roles. It is really important that the people who are working from home in any capacity, that their eligibility criteria, the roles in which they work, are conducive to that type of environment. And if they're not, you're going to have problems with a hybrid work program. The other thing is continuous evaluation of the program. That's what you said, really important that going forward, we've relaunched this program, but we are continuing to evaluate the program, evaluate the success of the program and how things are going before we make moves to expand, to do other things. So those are really key things that I think need to be in the forefront of everyone's mind. We did talk about the role of the virtual training and the role that it played. You mentioned that a little bit. How was that training received by managers and employees?
Well, again, a lot of it was refresher, but I think we zeroed in on those pain points during that training. Instead of it just being a general overview, we focus on things such as what counts as really teleworking, and that addressed people using it as a day off, and then answering questions like who approves the schedule, so that no one was left guessing. So that was mentioned in that training, and it was well received. And also really going over some highlighted portions of our policy about some of the do's and the don'ts. And we shared even some real life scenarios so that we could, address some of those day-to-day specifics. And then we gave everyone a safe, like I like to call it, a safe mic. In other words, a safe space to be able to ask those questions in front of someone that wasn't myself or our other trainer. It wouldn't be awkward. And so we also made very clear the next steps. So we provided a roadmap and metrics and those checkpoints, and even ways to address maybe future gaps. So it was really, managers love the clear guard rails, because we did separate the training with our employee and then our leaders, so that leaders can get more specific training around, like I say, giving feedback and holding our employees accountable, so that, again, the program can remain in place.
Wonderful. So what were some of were there any challenges when you all rolled out the new hybrid program, the relaunch? Were there any challenges that came up? And if so, how did you overcome them?
I would say that a few people thought that we were going to roll it out with the same 2 or 3 days that we had right out the gate. So it was a little shocking that we were only going to a 1 day phase. But we explained that, 1 day is what we're starting with. And we pointed out that many companies have eliminated telework. So we reminded everyone that it is a great privilege for us to still have remote work, and that, as long as we are aligning with our policies, we can expand it later. So that was kind of a shock to some employees. And then some jobs, we realized that some of the roles still have to be boots on the ground. So we were upfront about the reality of, and that we had to show them, really explain to them that not everyone would be able to participate. But again, because we spoke to it from a role perspective and not a person perspective, it was received a lot better. And then folks who needed wiggle room, with some of the 1 day or not Mondays or Fridays, we gave managers room to be a little creative in that. And by, maybe sometimes giving staggered times or compressed work weeks. And that gave people balance without shortchanging customer or team coverage.
Okay, that's great. One of the things that you really touched on, and it is really important in a hybrid model, is that open communication and over communication, making sure that everyone understands the goals and the objectives, making sure that everyone understands why decisions are being made, communicating those clearly so that everyone's on the same page. And I think that you all have done a really great job of that. And so let's fast forward to now. How would you say things are going since the relaunch?
Well, it's like you said about making clear expectations and regular communication, whether someone's at home or in the office, they need to know exactly what good remote work looks like and fit better. So I say that, because we've offered more training, we've made things more clear. I think a lot of the issues that we were facing around lack of communication or lack of the skill to be able to hold people accountable has been clear. Managers are now feeling a lot more comfortable. We track progress with some of our shared tools. They know how to do one-on-one check-ins now, giving better feedback. And so I think the hybrid environment is working, like I say, just fine within, being able to connect both our in-office employees with our remote without losing any type of business, needs.
Okay. So if you could offer one piece of advice to other employers who are maybe on the call, who are considering either implementing a hybrid model or relaunching a similar program, what would it be?
I would say, actually, a couple of things come to mind, and I'll be very brief regarding that. I would say definitely be very, very clear about accountability and equipping your leaders with those tools and training to hold their employees accountable. Make sure that you are answering those what if questions, those real life scenario questions, and fully equipping your leadership with that. Also, make it very clear to your employees what remote work really is, so that, again, productivity is not going down. And then, like you said, evaluate the roles to see if they are truly eligible for remote work, and not putting teams in an uncomfortable position right out the gate. So I would say that would be my biggest advice.
Well, thank you so much. It's great advice. I really wanted, you all were such a great group to work with. And I want to just thank you so much for just being with us and providing such great insight on your hybrid work program. And we should have some time for any questions, if there are questions for me or Maria. But at this time, thank you again, Maria. And at this time, we're going to turn it over to Ranja, who will take the next slide.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Elham. Thank you, Robin, for those for that great presentation, and especially thank you, Maria, for joining us today and sharing your experience with our program. I encourage everyone who have any question to please drop them in the chat. And if you don't want to share with everyone, please send them to Leslie or to myself, and we can read that when we get to the Q&A slide. But before we do that, there are things that's going on in Georgia Commute Options world that we wanted to share with you all. Right now, we have the Millionaire Challenge that's going through the end of this month. So basically, this challenge is encouraging commuters to participate in clean commutes, and that includes teleworking, biking, transit, carpooling, van pooling, biking. So if you are doing those, please download our app and join the challenge. It's not too late. We still have a week left. And next month in May, we have our Georgia Rides Challenge, which encourage people to participate in biking as a mode. So those are things that's happening. Our next event, next slide, please, Robin. Next month, if you enjoyed what you saw today and would like to, you have questions or want to kind of, hear more from our FlexWork team, we have kind of like an office hour style webinar next month where you can just ask questions, and our team will be happy to share that with you. Next slide, please. And so if you have any questions, as I said, please feel free to drop them there or send them to me or Leslie Goldberg in the chat. I'll give a few moments, whether that question is for Maria or for Elham or for Robin, let us know. And you can also email us the questions if you think of them later on, or if you are not comfortable sharing them with the team, with the group.
Oops.
Let me see, allowing a few moments. Okay. The team was thorough with their presentation and shared some great insight. Can you go to the next slide, please? We have a QR code here for our website. And, this webinar was about our FlexWork program, which encompasses not just telework and hybrid work, but it goes beyond that. If you are thinking, if your employees are not eligible for those remote work, maybe you can do a compressed work program that you can adopt. Our team, there's more to the flex workspace than just teleworking, so that is something that our team can work with you on. Feel free to email us at telework@Georgia Commute Options for any inquiries that you have. And also the GCO program goes beyond just flex work. We also work with different employers. We have a team of worksite advisors who work with employers throughout our 20-county region to promote clean commutes. And we partner with employers to do that, to reach your employees. So go to our website. We have some great resources there on the QR code. If you want resources, things you can download from the FlexWork team, you can find those on our website. And it looks like we might end this webinar early. Nobody ever complains about having a few minutes back. And thank you all so much for joining us on this Earth Day. And I think if we don't have any questions, we can end. Thank you all.